Colored Farmers Union, founded about 1886 in Texas. And this co-op grows to about 1.2 million farmers, something like this. It's one of our largest co-ops. And what they're doing is they're sharing farm equipment, they're sharing agricultural practices, and it was a way for us to pool our resources together so that we could save our farms, grow food, provide food for our communities, etc. So now we're largely, when we look at African Americans, regardless of where you are in the country, we're largely dependent upon other people to provide food for us. What happens if they just say, no, we don't want to feed you? So another co-op that we had was the Colored Merchants Association, the Colored Merchants Association, which was founded about 1928. It came out of the National Negro Business League, which was founded by Booker T. Washington in 1900. The Colored Merchants Association was an association, it was a co-op of African-American grocery store owners, okay? And they had hundreds of African-American grocery stores that were part of this cooperative, because one of the most popular forms of businesses that we had was either a grocery store because you have to eat, or a funeral parlor because you're going to die, or a life insurance company. Okay, these were very popular forms of businesses that we had. And when you study the Colored Merchants Association, they bought their products in bulk so that they could get economies of scale. They educated their members on accounting practices, marketing practices, things like this. So once again, we have businesses and we're engaged in capitalism, but we have a cooperative economic perspective when it comes to engaging in capitalism, and it's still centered around us being able to feed ourselves and sustain ourselves. And one of the reasons why they created the Colored Merchants Association was so African-American grocery store owned by us, African-American grocery store owners, could better compete against the white chain stores, okay? The Woolworths and the Kresge's and things like this. This is the early 1900s.
All right, folks, I wanted to have a conversation to bring us up to speed with some of the latest around the struggles of Black farmers as Black farmers has moved forward on filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration, essentially saying that the Biden administration have not held up their end of the bargain when it comes to getting farmers out of debt. This is an ongoing issue. And if you remember, we talked about earlier the last year where we talked about the great struggles of the Black farmer. And one of the big things that President Biden said is that he would invest or allocate, $5 billion worth of funds to help with Black farms, to get Black farmers out of debt and to create more sustainability for their land and for their products and services. Well, Black farmers are still waiting on the check. And so I wanted to have a conversation about this. One is because we just don't seem to talk about farming enough. We don't seem to kind of really bring that into the space of social justice. Yes, we could talk about police brutality. We could talk about housing. We could talk about credit. We could talk about the medical apartheid that exists in this country. We could talk about all of those things. But what about the Black farmer? What about that man, that woman who has used their land, tilled the ground, right? Literally tilled the ground to bring something of life to us so we can stay healthy. And this is something that I think that we want to just keep our eyes on. So let me share with you some details about this lawsuit that Black farmers have filed against the Biden administration. Take a look at this, folks. This is coming from the Griot. It says that the federal government has illegally broken a promise to pay off the debts of a group of Black farmers, according to a class action lawsuit. The group hopes to put pressure on officials to keep their word and restore funding that was dropped after a group of white farmers filed legal challenges arguing their exclusion was a violation of their constitutional rights. The lawsuit filed in October remains active even as the U.S. Department of Agriculture moves forward with another effort to help farmers in financial distress, in addition to paying farmers who the agency discriminated against. Now, John Boyd Jr., president, let's go to the next quote. The John Boyd Jr., president of the National Black Farmers Association and one of four plaintiffs in the lawsuit, said that the new programs don't match the USDA's earlier offer to pay off 120% of the debt of farmers who are socially disadvantaged. According to the lawsuit, this definition applies to more than 6,500 farmers who have, quote, traditionally suffered racial or ethnic prejudice, unquote, and are saddled with federal loan obligations. The lawsuit says that this includes Native Americans or Alaska Natives, Asian Americans, Black Americans or African Americans, Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic Americans or Latino Americans. Let me bring my brother in, brother Michael Imhotep, to share with us his thoughts on this situation. And folks, join us in the chat as we have a conversation about the plight of the Black farmers in this lawsuit. Brother Michael, it's always good to have you on, brother. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Farajii. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, good.
Let's talk to me about this latest lawsuit from the Black farmers and where we are with this whole process. I mean, I'm remembering the $5 billion, but according to the Black Farmers Association, the check really still hasn't been cut, and 6,500 farmers are still left out there in the cold, not knowing what to do.
Well, what happened is it was $5 billion, not specifically for African American farmers. It's African American farmers, Latino farmers, Native American farmers, and Asian American farmers. Lawsuits were filed by white farmers. Okay, right. And the lawsuits and the payments are tied up in court. A number of white farmers in different states filed lawsuits. So this is going to have to play out in court. Now, when John Boyd in 2022 was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, I've gotten a chance to talk to him a few times on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He said that the Black farmers are going to fight this out in court, to get the $5 billion in debt forgiveness enforced. He said that lawsuit may go on for 2 years or so. Now, this lawsuit that they filed, it looks like it was filed probably about October 2022. I was looking at different articles dealing with this lawsuit. This piece right here that we're looking at is from thegrio.com, right, and picked up by the Grio picked it up from the Associated Press. But it looks like this article is originally from like around early December 2022. So it looks like this is a lawsuit filed by Benjamin Crump on behalf of the Black farmers, and they are complaining about the second type of debt forgiveness that the federal government is trying to do. And this deals with $3.1 billion. Congress provided $3.1 billion that would allow the USDA to be able to work with distressed borrowers to provide help with their farm debts in new and more effective ways to help borrowers as much as possible, stay on land, stay in agriculture, etc. So it looks like Congress and the Biden administration is trying to find another way to help the farmers that won't get blocked in court, that won't get overturned in court. Because you got to remember, see, one of the things that they did is they filed the white farmers filed these lawsuits in courts that are overseen by Trump appointed judges, generally speaking, number one. Okay. Number two, if these lawsuits go to the U.S. Supreme Court, you're dealing with a 6-3 conservative majority in the U.S. Supreme Court. Three of those Supreme Court justices were appointed by Donald Trump. All right. Right. So you're dealing. I mean, hopefully they win in court. I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully they will. But because it is an irrefutable fact, African American farmers have been discriminated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for the last 100 years. But you can just go back to the year 2020. OK, because in 2020, under the Trump administration, white farmers got almost $26 billion in COVID aid from the Trump administration, whereas African American farmers got 0.1% of that. They got $26 million. This article I'm posting here in the chat, this is from the Washington Post. This is a interview with Tom Vilsack, who is Biden's new Secretary of Agriculture. He was the Secretary of Agriculture under the Obama administration. Now, John Boyd and other African-American farmers did not want Tom Vilsack to be Secretary of Agriculture because they had problems with him under the Obama administration. Biden was saying he needs somebody who understands the job, can hit the job, hit the ground running, doesn't have to be trained in the job. And Vilsack said he would do better with black farmers this time around. Apparently, he hasn't so far. We'll see what happens. Apparently, he hasn't so far. But Tom Vilsack, in this interview with the Washington Post, and this article was dated from March 25th, 2021, talked about how under the Trump administration, African-American farmers were discriminated against. So I would like to hear from Benjamin Crump on this. And I also want to hear from the Biden administration on this lawsuit, especially U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack as well on this lawsuit also.
Here's the thing why I brought this up, and I'm glad that you brought some history and some context on this, Brother Michael. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, like I said in my opening statement around this issue, we're just not bringing this into, when we talk social justice, farming is not a part of the conversation, brother.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, just culturally, like we don't actually think about this.
Right.
And so, you know, even for me, it's like, Farajii, you know, you got black farmers out there that are struggling right now.
Absolutely.
So it's like, well, how do we make sure that we have this conversation in a very, very big way, significant way? Of course, we're watching the eyes on the lawsuit, right? And even say if they're blessed to win this lawsuit, that might get drowned in. That's not going to be on the front page of the paper.
Right.
Of our local newspaper, black farmers win lawsuit. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to figure out on a cultural perspective, you know, we just talked to Dr. Bridget Cole Williams about, you know, eating healthy and childhood obesity. And we're talking about farming. And it's like, man, look, we got some real issues with food in this country. And I think that it's important that we really understand the significance of it. Also, especially given that food costs so much now in a lot of places around this country.
Well, they're contributing factors. I was looking at information today dealing with the increase in the price of eggs. And a lot of that has to do with the bird flu, the avian flu, the bird flu that is killing off a lot of the hens that lay the eggs. Okay. So there's a number of different things here. This ties into history. Number one, we have to understand that African people are the original farmers. We created agriculture. Okay. But a lot of us have forgotten this history. And, you know, part of it has to do with the fact that farming probably during the Great Migration and afterwards, farming was somewhat probably looked down upon by some African Americans who were able to go into new industries, were able to go to college, able to get away from farming, things like this. And a lot of that had to do with sharecropping. A lot of that had to do with seeing their parents struggle, maybe when it came to farming and having land taken away, dealing with white supremacy, not dealing with farming from the perspective of you have a federal government that is supporting you and helping you with your farm like it did white farmers. Okay. So when we look at very quickly here, when we look at the Great Migration, starting in 1915, from 1915 to 1970, you have 6 million African Americans migrating from the South up north and out west, going to work in factories. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, you have corporations and factories up north marketing to African Americans in the South to come up north and work in these factories, come get a better way of life, come out of the cotton fields and things like this, because you had white men who were going to fight in World War I and they left jobs behind. So this created a labor vacuum. So it was a lot of African Americans who moved from the South up north to fill these jobs, get a better way of life, get a better wage. And then we're going to also see this continue after World War I. We see in World War II, and then after World War II, we're going to see this continue. So part of it has to do with not really fully understanding our history, that the foundation of a community is family, but also being able to provide food for yourself. Okay. And we have a deep, rich history in when it comes to agriculture. We have a deep, rich history there. And then also part of that history deals with the co-ops, the cooperative economics. One of the largest co-ops that we had was the black Colored Farmers Union, founded about 1886 in Texas. And this co-op grows to about 1.2 million farmers, something like this. It's one of our largest co-ops. And what they're doing is they're sharing farm equipment, they're sharing agricultural practices, and it was a way for us to pool our resources together so that we could save our farms, grow food, provide food for our communities, etc. So now we're largely, when we look at African Americans, regardless of where you are in the country, we're largely dependent upon other people to provide food for us. What happens if they just say, no, we don't want to feed you? So another co-op that we had was the Colored Merchants Association, the Colored Merchants Association, which was founded about 1928. It came out of the National Negro Business League, which was founded by Booker T. Washington in 1900. The Colored Merchants Association was an association, it was a co-op of African American grocery store owners, okay? And they had hundreds of African American grocery stores that were part of this cooperative, because one of the most popular forms of businesses that we had was either a grocery store because you have to eat, or a funeral parlor because you're going to die, or a life insurance company. Okay, these were very popular forms of businesses that we had. And when you study the Colored Merchants Association, they bought their products in bulk so that they could get economies of scale. They educated their members on accounting practices, marketing practices, things like this. So once again, we have businesses and we're engaged in capitalism, but we have a cooperative economic perspective when it comes to engaging in capitalism, and it's still centered around us being able to feed ourselves and sustain ourselves. And one of the reasons why they created the Colored Merchants Association was so African American grocery store owned by us, African American grocery store owners, could better compete against the white chain stores, okay, the Woolworths and the Kresge's and things like this. This is the early 1900s. Right. So a lot of these ways that we fought back against white supremacy, we've gotten away from, and these are things that we have to sankofa, we have to reach back to go forward, or fetch back to go forward, to understand how we were able to deal with these problems in the past to meet the needs of the community in the present and the future.
You dropped a word right there now, brother. You dropped a word. I'm serious. You dropped a word, because now what it makes me think about is, my grandmother, who came from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, right? You know what I mean? She came up under that. And, right. May God be pleased with her. You know what I mean? She was 90 years old, 4'8". Brother Michael, she was like a buck with chains in the pocket. You know what I'm saying? Small framed woman. But she ate well. Right. She ate well. And her skin was glowing. And she often talked about the importance of that level of going back to the ground, getting fresh fruits and vegetables. And it's something, because I think now more than ever, we're starting to see the importance of it. Right. Not just in the childhood obesity situation, but just even with us as adults. Look, COVID showed a lot, because it opened up the door to show that we're not as healthy as we think we are. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us are not as healthy as we think we are. Right. We are all vulnerable to some sort of medical condition. Absolutely. Whether you eat meat, whether you're vegan, whether you're vegetarian, pescatarian, like the way we're eating, the foods that we're eating in this country, I mean, big food, big food is a major lobby, has a major lobby, and big food has major stake in this government, and how the government, the FDA, the USDA, all of these institutions. Like I asked Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, who's bringing the fire to these institutions? Right. Because you can't tell the people, hey, y'all need to eat better. Y'all need to watch your sugar intake, your salt intake. You can't tell black folks, y'all have high diarrhea, not diarrhea, diabetes. Y'all have all other issues. But then you're not going after the institutions that produce the food, that manage the food, and that essentially sets the guidelines on what is acceptable and what's unacceptable.
Right. So you're dealing like with food deserts and things like this.
Brother, you
And
can't do it. How you going to talk about good, healthy food if a person is living 3 miles away from their closest grocery store?
Right. So this is let me just back up for a minute here.
Yeah.
Number one, it's important to understand that the $5 billion in debt forgiveness for farmers of color was in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan.
Right.
That part of the legislation was put in there by people like Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia, people like Senator Cory Booker, Senator Elizabeth Warren. I want people to understand no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. So you can see how African-American farmers are basically getting no help from Republicans, white or black. Not only that, I wanted to be known, and people can go research this. Senator Lindsey Graham, the senior senator from South Carolina, was on Fox News attacking this debt forgiveness. And he said it was racist, and he called it reparations. And he said, if you're a white farmer, you don't get anything. If you're a black farmer, you get debt forgiveness. He didn't say anything about the $20 billion in COVID-19 aid that white farmers got, almost $26 billion, I should say, that white farmers got in 2020 from the Trump administration. And African-American farmers were largely shut out about that. He had amnesia when it came to that. Then also the junior senator from South Carolina, Senator Tim Scott, the Black Tea Party Republican, Senator Tim Scott, he has attacked the debt forgiveness as well. Okay, right. for farmers. And John Boyd on Roland Martin Unfiltered said that Senator Tim Scott is doing nothing for the 6,000 black farmers in South Carolina. Okay, now if we look at there was a good article from face-to-faceafrica.com that I shared on the African History Network Facebook fan page. This deals with a black grocery store chain that I never heard of, by the way. It's called Yellow Banana, and they own 38 stores across the country. Okay.
Really?
This is I just posted the link here.
Okay.
And they've secured $13.5 million to expand. All right. We have to, if it doesn't already exist, there has to be a link. There has to be a infrastructure of where a black grocery store chain like Yellow Banana and any other black grocery store chains out there can build this pipeline to get products and to get produce and any other products from black farmers into these grocery stores to get it into the African-American community. If we can't feed ourselves, I don't know what else we can do. Okay. I mean, that's just basic. Okay. Professor James Small talks about food, clothing, shelter, and safety. These are basic things that African Americans need: food, clothing, shelter, and safety. So you have groups like D-Town Farms here in Detroit and the Black Food Security Network, which is a cooperative, and I'm a member of the cooperative as well. So shout out to them. They're building a cooperative grocery store here in Detroit. Is going to be the cooperative economics, the co-ops that I think really save us. And people like, shout out to Malikia Kinney and everybody at D-Town Farms, but people like Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nemhard, who is probably one of the top authorities on the history of the co-ops. She's been educating a lot of African Americans over the past few years. She wrote a book called Collective Courage, which deals with the history of African-American co-ops and the different types of co-ops and benevolent societies we've had, from the Free African Society in 1787 to Color Merchants Association, different things like this. But it's going to have to go back and study that history and understand, how did we deal with thof these problems in the past when we're dealing with white domestic terrorism, when we're dealing with segregation, etc. But getting this information out about the lawsuit from the black farmers is why African-American owned media is so important, and responsible African-American owned media, because a lot of people don't know that this is taking place. Absolutely. And the other thing is that the Congressional Black Caucus has been at the forefront in trying to get aid for black farmers also. See, that gets left out of the narrative as well. Okay. So all this is extremely important.
Absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, let's have a few more minutes talking about the plight of the black farmer here in America. All right, folks, welcome back. We wanted to continue to have this conversation about the struggle of the black farmer, about how black farmers are suing the Biden administration to get some aid for the work that they're doing, or the work that that continues to be neglected. And I just wanted to have a conversation about this whole situation. And so we've been checking in with Brother Michael Imhotep, who is the host of the African History Network podcast show. And also you can check him out on the AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I want to get some comments from our online culture crew here, Brother Michael, as we talk about farming. I think everybody is in agreement. Food is life. This is the important issue.
Right.
But going back to that general point that you just made, that one is that we are not having these conversations. If it wasn't for black media, I don't know if these conversations would even really be discussed. Right. So that's why it's important for us to have this space. And then two, you know, the reality is that black farmers are struggling and can contribute a whole lot to the hunger issue here in America. Yes. And we don't, you know, black farmers just don't have to farm for black people. They can farm for white people, Latino people. They can farm for everybody. Right. And if we look at the hunger issue in this country, brother, you know, I've done work with food pantries in Baltimore. And when I see the food pantries, when you see the quality of food coming into some of these pantries, and people are just giving their donations, but the cans look dented, the food looks old, it's the quality. I mean, the food pantries accept it, but it's not up to par. You know what I mean? Right. It's not up to code of what you would normally see in the grocery store, what you would want to buy. So when we look at the hunger issue, it's crazy that 6,500 black farmers are in a situation where they're waiting on aid and to try to get some level of debt relief from the situation. Let me go to Taylor. Taylor, hi. Taylor, you posted, said, hi, the African-American farmers wanted Marcia Fudge. She's over there making changes in HUD. I see why. Yeah, Marcia Fudge over there doing the work that she's doing.
Yeah, that was who they wanted. Former member of the Congressional Black Caucus, but she was put in HUD, and Biden said that he needed somebody in the Department of Agriculture that knew that job already. Vilsack was the former Secretary of Agriculture under the Biden administration, as I said before. John Boyd and the black farmers had problems with Vilsack under the Obama administration, had problems with them then. And Vilsack said he would do better this time, at least on this. I don't know about on the other issues than with black farmers, but at least on this issue here, he has not so far, at least. So hopefully they're successful with their lawsuit. I really want to hear from Benjamin Crump, John Boyd, but also the response from the Biden administration. I haven't seen what the response from the Biden administration is regarding this lawsuit.
Absolutely. Conscious Thought, my guy, you checked in and said, point to ponder. If we had black farmers growing food in the U.S., then we would not have to depend so much on countries outside of the U.S. for certain grains to supply the needs in U.S. So we know that America is a major wheat distributor. Russia is a major wheat distributor. You know, we've had conversations, Brother Michael, talking about the wheat crisis that hit the continent of Africa, and how the Russia-Ukrainian war has affected the food distribution and the food supply in Africa. Mm-hmm. So to Conscious Thought's point of having the black farmers as a way to bring that in, so we don't rely on that. What do you make of that? What do you take from that? Conscious Thought
you would need more black farmers growing wheat and things like this to be able to really supply the nation, if we just look at the U.S., in to the level that it needs to be. There's about 45,000 or so African-American farmers, and it's declining. All of them don't grow wheat. So you would have to have an increase in the farmers, and they would need some type of federal subsidies to help them be able to do that as well. Because, and then at the same time, here's the other thing that gets left out of the conversation. African-American farmers are competing against the corporate-owned farms also. And that's another thing. This is why the cooperatives, if you have these farmers who are belonging to cooperatives, this is why the cooperatives can help them more so, because even a lot of white farmers are getting squeezed out by the corporate-owned farms also. Okay, so that's another factor when we deal with this. But one of the ways to help support the African-American farmers is for them to be able to link up with a black chain like Yellow Banana. And Yellow Banana operates under the Save-A-Lot brand name when it comes to grocery stores.
Oh, okay.
But it's still African-American owned. See, that's another strategy there also. That's talked about in that article on face-to-faceafrica.com. So we have to look at these different strategies to really bring these things into fruition, and I'll wrap up with this. Dr. John Henrik Clark, one of our great Grandmaster Scholar warriors, I agree with him on this. He said, don't come to me talking that nationhood stuff, because a lot of black people say we want a nation, we want a nation. He said, until you have acquired the skills that are necessary to manage and run a nation. You need to understand agriculture. You need to understand oceanography. You have to understand how economies work, how the political structure works. You have to obtain and acquire the skills needed to manage a nation before you can start talking about we want a nation, we want a nation.
Hey,
see,
brother,
it's easier to say we want a nation. It's much harder to acquire the skills to actually manage a nation. That
man is speaking nothing but to my soul when he said that one.
Right.
I'm telling you, I always question that, Brother Michael, that the fact that I've had numerous conversations with black folks to talk about nation. Of course, being in the nation was up. Man, we need a nation. Like, bro, we need to build a school, build a grocery store, get a bank.
Right.
Let's start from there.
The basics. The
basic stuff.
Shelter, safety. Okay.
Come on, man. Like,
if you can't make your own underwear, how you gonna manage a nation? Okay. So it's the basics. Acquire the skills, get the basics done, then you can manage a nation. And this is the same thing for people who say we need to separate. 99% of people who say we need to separate are still here. They haven't gone anywhere. Okay. So once again, it's understanding, acquiring these skills and utilizing these skills that are needed to build a nation. All right. So it's much more than just a saying or a hashtag or something like that. No, it's hard work.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more. And to get to the skills to that point is like, how many of us can really run how many of us really know what it takes to open up a supermarket, for one, let alone to open up a number of supermarkets? I would love to talk to Yellow Banana to get to the folks the leadership of that group,
exactly.
to try to figure out, like, how are you doing this? There was a supermarket in East Baltimore, Brother Michael, called Apple and Oranges.
Mm-hmm.
And they were maybe about 10 blocks or so away from Johns Hopkins Hospital, in a part of East Baltimore that was legitimately a food desert.
Right.
And unfortunately, they closed down. Black owned, closed down, and people were like, well, what happened to it? Brother, I will tell you, and I've gone to it. Every time I drove past it, because it was right on the North Avenue, right on a major road in Baltimore City. Every time I drove past it, 1 or 2 cars in the parking lot.
Right. Right.
In a predominantly, this neighborhood was black. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So, black. It's a couple things here.
See, and here's the part. The part is, for us as a people, we have to be kind of reconditioned on how to take action on every step. Okay, we need to recondition to own something. Okay, cool. We need to recondition on how we market it. Okay, cool. We need to recondition on how we engage with it. Like, we gotta, and I'm saying that's how bad our situation is in terms of our mental, the mental condition that we find ourselves. That we actually have to tell black people, if you have a black store, go to it. Now, are the prices going to be the same? No. You can't compare one supermarket to Target, Walmart.
Right. Who has economies of scale and have hundreds of locations.
Right. Kroger's and Costco.
Right.
And it's like, and people are like, man, I can get a bottle of case of water from Ralph's for $4 or $5, man, and go to the black man, his joint like $8, $9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they don't have the quantity. They don't have the volume.
Right. So with that, we have to have a total reprogramming of African Americans. This is why African history and culture are so important. They give us our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles. They influence our psychology, which influence our actions and behaviors and our results. And they also influence how we engage in economics. So a lot of people say we need more businesses. We need more businesses, but they don't talk about the need to support African American owned businesses so they can stay in business. Okay. This is why I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years, and a lot of people over the past 10, 15 years were saying we need more black businesses. I said, no, we need to increase the percentage of our disposable income that we spend with black owned businesses, because what happened, we went from like about 2.7 million black owned businesses around 2012, 2016, somewhere around there. We went up to about 4 million, but the average revenue was cut in half. It went from about $106,000 a year to somewhere around $52,000, $56,000 a year. And then when COVID hit by April 2020, about 41% of black owned businesses had shut down. Okay. So it's not having just more, it's understanding you have to support the ones that exist. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business. Okay. So I encourage people to read the article dealing with Yellow Banana, because it talks about how there was 3 entrepreneurs who started this business, and they have law degrees from like Harvard. Two have law degrees from Yale. One has an MBA from Harvard's business school. Okay, and they talk about how they started the business and the need and why they started the business to be able to provide food for the community. Are we still here?
Yeah, we're still good. We're still good. I'm just marinating off of that.
Right.
I'm just marinating off of that, brother. Real talk. Like,
exactly.
We got to take a quick pause, but really quickly, I mean, we cannot allow this situation with our black farmers to go unnoticed. Right. And I think that it is super, super important. I'm so happy, Brother Michael, that you brought up Yellow Bananas into this conversation, because some of us, we like, well, we need proof. Okay, you got proof. They got 38 stores. You know how, some of us.
The proof is in our history. We had hundreds of black-owned grocery stores in the early 1900s. The proof is in our history. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems in the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community. The proof is in our history, and that we're still here. Okay, so we have to understand how we dealt with those problems before.
And as you mentioned with that piece, bro, history has shown that we can become an independent people, a nation inside of a nation. History has legitimately shown that. Ever since we were removed from chattel slavery, we have shown that we can build, we can prosper. History has shown that. Every great leader, whether you're talking about Marcus Garvey, I don't care what black leader, the most honorable Farajii Muhammad, every great black leader has given us something, a glimpse of what our heaven could look like right here on earth. History has shown it.
Right.
We just got to go back to, like you said in the earlier remark, do the same Kofa and go back and look at it. Because we're trying to reinvent the wheel in 2023, man. And it's like, bro, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just look at what they did.
Look at how they did it.
They were dealing with much more, right? They were dealing with some serious issues. It's in our head back then, it was physical. Now it's mental. We are in our own heads, bro.
Right.
We are in our own heads about our liberation, our existence. And at this point, we got to get out of our own heads. All right, go to African History Network, y'all. Check out
AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Yeah, because tonight's class, 7 p.m. is going to be a free class. And Saturday's class, 2 p.m. is going to be a free class. We have the link there to register for those sessions. Tuesday, January 10th. Saturday, January 14th, we're going to have free sessions, so you can join us for the class. Visit theAfricanHistoryNetwork.com.
There it is. Brother Michael Imhotep, always a pleasure to have you on, brother. Look forward to reconnecting next week.
Thank you. Okay, welcome. How's everybody doing today? Hotep, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network and host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So I was on Farajii Muhammad's show, The Culture, today on January 19th, 2023. And at the end of the show, I made the announcement about 2 free online class sessions that I'm doing this weekend. Saturday, January 21st, 2023, we're doing another class session of my 16-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this would be a free class session. So if you've been wanting to take my online course in the past, where we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place, you can join us for a free class session. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and register for it. And then on Sunday, January 22nd, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're doing another session of the second 16-week online course that I teach. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. So this class on Sunday will be a free class session as well. You can visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and you can register for these 2 free online class sessions. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime and just click right here for a free class session and register for it. And so even if you missed the class live, you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. And you can register for the full 16-week online course. It's on sale $60, regularly $130. Okay. Just click right here to register here for Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade. And the second class that I teach on Sunday, January 22nd, and this is our normal. Normally, our second class is on Tuesdays, but I'm doing a special session this Sunday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click right here for the free class session as well, of from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. And you can register here for the full class. So in our Sunday class, in this particular session, we're going to deal with World War I, which is 1914 and 1918. And we'll also discuss the Harlem Hellfighters, which is an all-Black regiment in the U.S. Army, fighting in World War I. We'll talk about the Harlem Hellfighters, and we'll also talk about the Red Summer of 1919, where you had over 25 major race riots in the country, in Chicago, Atlanta, Arkansas, etc. And you had African-American World War I veterans who fought against racist mobs, white racist mobs, during the Red Summer of 1919. Okay, so we're going to talk about that on Sunday. In the class on Saturday, last class we started talking about Christopher Columbus and the history of Columbus. I shared excerpts from Dr. John Henrik Clark's book, Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism. So we'll get deeper into Christopher Columbus and how Columbus and his 4 voyages helped to spread slavery, racism, capitalism, and the exploitation of indigenous people, and then also leads to the Asiento de Negros being signed by King Charles V in August of 1518, which drastically expands the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, and then we'll get into the development of the triangular trade and England getting involved in slavery in 1562, etc. Okay, so we're dealing with this in our class on Saturday, January 21st, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. You can register for these free class sessions. And even after the class is over with, you still have access to that free class session. You can go back and watch it as much as you want to. But you can also, we also have both classes in a course bundle. Okay, so you could register for both classes for only $100. That is at least a $260 value. So click right here for register here for the course bundle as well. Okay, so we have all that information right on the homepage of our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. So when you scroll down, it has the information about my radio show, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., the African History Network show on 9:10 a.m. on the Superstation WFDF here in Detroit. We also broadcast on our social media platforms when we're live on Facebook, the African History Network, YouTube, Michael Imhotep, and the Michael Imhotep Show also on Facebook. We have a PayPal and Cash App information here, so you can support us as well. We definitely need your financial support. This information here is about the Happy Day of Excellence taking place Saturday, February 4th. 2023, 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. in New York City. Professor James Small, Professor Kabahaya Watha-Kamene will be there speaking, two of my teachers. So click right here for more information and to register and to purchase your ticket. You can also live stream the event as well. And then we have the information here for the courses, okay, right below that, the course bundle as well as the individual classes. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past that I've been teaching going back to 2017, email us for a 50% discount on the course bundle. Email me at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, or you can email me right through the website. At the top of the page, just click on Contact the African History Network. All right. So with these online classes, I developed a curriculum for them. I've been studying, I'm a historian. I've been studying history 31 years, and ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. I've been teaching that going back to 2017, on and off since 2017. Very briefly here, if we just look at a brief overview of the class, and let me pull this up here. So I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, in the class. Also share some interviews I've done with some of our scholars as well. Okay, so in the let's go to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so I developed the curriculum, I developed the PowerPoint presentation for both of these courses. Okay, so we can't start studying our history and slavery even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study. We can't start in 1619 or the 1440s when the Portuguese get involved, like 1441, when the Portuguese get involved in the transatlantic slave trade. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who enter into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, from North Africa in 711 AD. This course not only deals with the transatlantic slave trade, but it also deals with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place, the transatlantic slave trade of African people taking place. August 20th, 2019 marked the 400th year anniversary of the 20 and odd Africans who came into Point Comfort in, really it was Hampton, Virginia, on August 20th, 1619, in what would be called the colony of Virginia. Okay. And one of the things we do within the class is how a lot of what we know about 1619 is false. All right. And codified slave laws didn't even exist in any of the 13 colonies when those 20 and odd Africans from Angola came in 1619. But also African people have been in the land we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years. So this year was known as the year of return, as many African Americans were and continue to reconnect to Africa, and they would travel into Ghana and other West African countries. When we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America, and we have been in the land we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years. Now, this does not mean that the transatlantic slave trade did not happen. That's not what I'm saying. What we have to understand is that African people have been in this land we call the United States of America, or what Native Americans call Turtle Island, we've been here going back tens of thousands of years before we were told that we came here. Okay, so we have to understand the difference. We did not first come to this land conquered and shackled and chained by Europeans. Okay, and that is mentally damaging for people to believe something like that. They first came to this land conquered and shackled and chained. No, this was actually our land stolen from us. And one of the books that we use in the class is Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Okay, and he's a friend of mine. I've interviewed Dr. David Imhotep a number of times. And so some of you have seen the interviews, have heard the interviews that I've done with him. And this was his first book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, which came out in 2011. His new book, The First Americans Were Africans, Revised and Expanded, came out in 2021. And page 14 of his book deals with the discovery made in Allendale County, South Carolina, by Dr. Albert Goodyear, who's an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. This discovery was made in 2004 that documents an African presence in the Georgia, South Carolina area going back at least 51,700 years. And they found 13 different types of evidence, documenting this African presence. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, painting, skulls, skeleton structures, and tools. All right. So we get deep into this information in the class. And then so that's on Saturday, January 21st, 2023. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet's one of the original names for Egypt. And the Maafa is a Kiswahili term, which is in reference to the Great Disaster, which is the transatlantic slave trade. So visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com to register for these free class sessions for both classes. And you can register for the full class, which you can also use with your children. I would say the content is PG-13. It's very visual. We have a text chat in the class so you can ask questions. You can see me. I can't see you. We have book references, articles, video clips, and for the books, usually I show you the text of the pages that we're looking at on the screen. So it's very engaging as well. Okay. All right. So watch out for me on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Fridays on the Black Star Media Network, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm not just a historian. I'm a political commentator as well. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube, Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube, or download the Black Star Media app. And then also usually on Mondays, I'm on Farajii Muhammad show, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Black Star Media Network as well. And then my show, the African History Network show, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF here in Detroit. But we also broadcast on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, the Michael Imhotep Show, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep, as well as on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. You can download the iHeartMedia app and search for 9:10 a.m. Superstation and listen live, or the iTunes radio app and listen live. And you can listen to our audio podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Search for the African History Network Show. We're on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn, a number of different audio podcast platforms. Okay. All right. And if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. So this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, pay for these various services that I use, purchase more equipment, upgrade the laptop, etc. Okay, so we definitely appreciate and need your support. If you want me to do special customized classes, email me through the website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, about that. And we could do group classes if you want it for your church, study group, organization, etc. If you want shorter classes, instead of this time around is 16 weeks. Normally this is a 12-week online class. But if you want a 6-week class, 8-week class, etc., email me at theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We can set that up. And African American History Month is coming up. Black History Month is coming up. I have fantastic presentations for Black History Month, dealing with the origins of Black History Month, dealing with also what the annual theme of Black History Month is as well. This year's annual theme is dealing with Black resistance for African American History Month, and I have some powerful content dealing with that. Okay. All right. So remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.